that during CO I thought it would be fun to get a job at a local haunted house attraction. My friend Marisa was already working there, and she told me they were looking for new actors and actresses. She pulled some strings and got me a job. After I met with the owner, there were multiple sections to the haunted house attraction, including 3 haunted houses and the haunted corn maze. On my first day on the job, there was some slight rehearsing my character and just demonstrating my acting skills to one of the supervisors who was on duty. My role for the night was assigned to be a damsel and distress, and this meant I was going to be tied to a pole and yelling at the guests to help me as they walked past me. Of course, all guests would be told before entering not to touch any of the actors or actresses, so they would know not to actually untie me when I'm screaming help me. So before opening time, the supervisor SL coordinator Jeremiah walked me to my post, quite literally my post, because I'd be tied to a wooden post in the corn maze. I was honestly surprised that I actually had to be tied up and not just pretend. I asked how I would go to the bathroom and such. He said there would be short breaks between sessions. He also said there would be another supervisor nearby if I should need anything, which made me feel a little better. Once he walked away, I was left alone. There were a bunch of sound effects and scary ambience loops echoing through the cornfield from the various speakers hidden throughout the maze. Pretty soon a little air horn sounded in the distance, indicating that the attraction was open and to get into character. I was nervous but excited, since I was more so in the middle of the corn maze. It wasn't until a few minutes passed that the first guest would be passing me. I started to put on my best performance as a damsel and distress, so I screamed and fake cried, begging everyone who passed for help, saying he's coming back soon, untie me. Some people would play along and say things back, and I improvised responses in character. Everyone was wearing face masks because of CO, so I couldn't see people's entire faces. Eventually, two male guests who looked to be in their 30s walked past, looking at me, not saying a word. One of them slowed down as he just shot me this gaze with his big eyes that quite honestly creeped me out. They kept walking and disappeared further into the maze. This was around the time I was starting to realize there would be long gaps between guests. Sometimes I could suddenly hear someone brushing through the crops nearby. I was wondering if it was a staff member. The guests weren't supposed to stray off the path. I turned completely around and saw too many merging from the crops towards the pole I was tied to, the same two men from before. Something wasn't right. I broke character and said, "You guys can't stray off the path." Then one of them laughed under their mask, and the two men started speaking in some other language, I think Russian. Then one of them walked back to the path, but in the opposite direction that the guests are supposed to go. He just started standing there, keeping watch it seemed, while the other on started to inappropriately grab me. I knew what was happening immediately, and I started screaming bloody murder, saying, "Help, this isn't part of the act." I called out things like I'm being assaulted, and moments later one of the supervisors emerged, seeing if I was okay. By then the two men had already run away. I was untied and escorted out of the maze. I called my parents, and they insisted I just leave right now. I left, and Jeremiah and one of the other supervisors said I'd be paid for the night, and if I didn't want to come back they'd understand, but to just keep them in the loop. I wish I could say it was over, though on my drive home I was extra cautious to make sure I wasn't being followed. I noticed halfway home that the same white car was behind me the whole time. I started making turns down random streets, and when the white car stayed behind me every single time, I knew I was being followed. I knew I had to find the nearest police precinct, so I typed in police station on Google Maps and I started driving to it. They followed me the whole way until I pulled into the parking lot of the precincts. Then they kept driving. I never saw the car again. I sat in my car for 10 minutes before finally turning it back on and driving home, confirming every few seconds that I wasn't being followed. I didn't return to work at that haunted house attraction again.